Hi everyone, Nancy with our treasure home. I am outside. I am trying to do this so y'all can see my face. So, in a couple of lives, Land's Promised Land. I'll put their link down there, and Devil Dogs. I'll put a couple other people's links down. We were talking about scary things, and I said I had done a video before about it. I don't think it may. Anyway, I'll just do another one. So, scary things. That's the reason why I'm doing this outside, because sometimes there's some things that just don't want to stay around me. So I'm sticking with, and my son. Don't know why. Alright, so first scary thing. I'd be 9 years old, in my parents' house, and because on that other video I have a sketch, you could say. Anyway, it was a ranch. So here's the living room. There was a little hallway. There's a bathroom. Here's a bedroom. Comes a plane. Ooh, I love seeing the planes come in. I always wonder who's coming to Columbus, Ohio. Who just never know who might be showing up. So, anyway, everybody was outside in the back, and I was young because we had a garden and everything, and everybody's out in the back and everything. And the way my parents' house was built, it was 3 feet up off. I won't say 3 feet up off the ground, but it was 3 feet underneath the house, because that back then they built it that way so you could go underneath the house and my dad could fix the furnace or whatever, because sometimes you had to go in there because they had not propane. It was not it was an old heater, but it wasn't propane. It's the old kind. So sometimes you would have to go underneath there and check if the light was on or whatever, the plumbing, so you can get to the plumbing. So I've crawled underneath the house, and my brother has too and everything. So everybody's outside. I'm coming from the bedroom, and here comes plane number 2. See if I can get it. Can y'all see it? I don't know. Can you see it? There it is. Now that would be a good 4th of July surprise. If somebody was coming to see me. Just never know. And then, so the bedroom, there was a bedroom here, then it was the bathroom, then the bedroom here, and there was a little short hallway. Well, right there in the middle was the return for the furnace. You know, the air to go through there and come out through the other vents. And there was a hall closet on top of that. So, I was walking from the bedroom to the kitchen to get me something to drink, and at that return I heard somebody go, Nancy, and I just clear as day. And I'm just like, okay, maybe I just thinking something. So I went outside. I said, did anybody call me? Because the windows were open, and they were like, no, nobody called you. I'm like, okay. Then I thought maybe my brother's playing a trick. So I went to the kitchen, got me something to drink, went back to my room, went out my room again. It did it a second time. So I looked at the window real quick, and my brother was further in the backyard playing with the soccer ball. I was like, okay, that's not my brother. The third time it happened, I went outside, and I didn't go back in until everybody went back in with me. That was it. I was done after 3. I was done. So, and then I met my best friend. She was walking up and down the street, and a few years later, we were about 13, and she told me, she said she was laying in bed and she didn't have her feet covered up. Something grabbed her feet. She thought it was her brother, but her brother wasn't home. So there was in our neighborhood, there was a big creek, not a creek, but big ditches in the woods. But a little bit further down the road, and not even been a quarter of about a couple tenths of a mile. Our land was built. The houses were built on swampland, and because as you went down the hill, there was swamp and everything. And to this day, when my parents built onto the house, my best friend and I, because there was a mound of dirt, her and I were digging in it, and we found Civil War relics. Should have known back then to keep them, but my mom told us to put them back in the dirt. So later on, we went and we mapped it out, and sure enough, through that property, there were soldiers who walked through there. So we don't know any, we just left it at that. So, about the same time, my mom used to drive a school bus. So we were always told not to play on the school bus. So we played on the school bus and everything. And so we had gotten on the school bus, and my dad comes home. So we were probably about 14 or 15. No, it was summer, so we were about 14, I guess. So when we saw my dad come around the corner, we ducked down so he didn't see us. Now, the front doors, they open and close, those doors were open. When we got up, they were closed. Now, here is the key. Those doors on my mom's school bus always squeaked. They always made a noise. She don't care how much she oiled them, the parts, they always squeaked when they opened and closed. Always. You knew when they were being open and closed. That sucker didn't make a sound. And they were closed. We looked at each other, and we were close to the back door, exit door. We opened that door and left. We got out of the bus, and we did not get back in it. However, later on, her and I were in the yard playing. My dad come outside, and I asked him, I said, "Did you close the doors on the school bus?" He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, I was like, "The doors on the school bus, they were open and now they're closed." He goes, "I ain't touch those things. I just got home from the store." And I was like, her and I just looked at each other like, yeah, we ain't getting on that bus no more. So we didn't get on the bus anymore, and I guess the police are already on their patrols. So, I know here lately we've had a lot of cars get broken into, so it's just that thing. So, then later on, so that was in our teens. We did have a peeping Tom when I was 16 years old, and we caught that sucker. Here is the creepy thing. The windows were 6 feet up off the ground, because, like I said, there was 3 feet underneath the house where you could crawl in and everything. That's not scary, but we caught a peeping Tom. Well, alright, I'll tell that real quick. We were in my room watching TV, and so here's the corner of the house. Here's one side, and then there's the corner. So I had a window facing this side and a window facing the backyard, and it was all fenced in. And she looked at me. She goes, "Can the dog look through the window?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" So she nudged me, and because she whispered, and she goes, "Because that's so nice." So I was like, "No, and that's not the backyard." I said, "Just follow me." I was like, "I'm going to the get something to drink. Do you want something to drink?" She goes, "Yeah, well, I'm going to the bathroom." So we get up. I grab a baton. We had batons. She grabbed the bat. We went, because by the time we had a den and everything, went and got my dad. It's like, "Somebody's peeping in the window." He goes, "Oh, y'all just seeing things and everything." I was like, "No, we're not." So we had a side door we could go out. So we went around that side door, and sure enough, there was a guy peeping in the window. And I was barefoot. I chased him down that street and I yelled at him. I said, if you ever come back, I'm going to beat the crap out of you. Took that baton and swung it just like a police baton. I swung that thing. It knocked him down. I mean, I was close enough. I was going to grab his shirt because he had fell down and he got up and he took off. I told him, if you ever come back, I said, I am beating the crap out of you with this baton, and I mean it. So, we made a plan. So sure enough, I was like, okay, we're going to get ready. We're going to watch and see if he comes back. That sucker came back the next night. So we're watching. So that was a Friday night. The next night was a Saturday night. So, I forgot what we were watching. So we were watching TV and everything. Sure enough, that sucker shows up. She nudges me, and it's like, okay. So I say she says, this time I go out the back door to the backyard. I'm going to get this sucker. I had a baseball bat. This time she had a baton or something like that. He happens to, because my dad went around the front. He jumps the backyard fence. And we had a great big pool, round pool. And I was like, okay. So I went around it. He goes around it. I throw that thing at him. It hits him, knocks him down. He starts jumping the fences through the backyards. I start going after him. And after the third yard, I was like, I told you if he came back, what would happen. 2 weeks later, the cops caught him, and he had bruises all over his body from where I threw the baton at him. I was like, yes. So, that wasn't creepy. I mean, it was kind of creepy, but it's not kind of creepy. Hands going to sleep. So, alright, now, here comes the nitty-gritty. Okay? My son and I went up to Blue Ridge Mountains. We lived in Virginia, and we were, well, before then I was 18. A group of us went up there. It was like a church thing or something or other. And we stopped at the side of the road, looking over and everything else. And MacGyver had been on, and they had been filming in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and they had caught the sound of Bigfoot. Everybody's joking. And all of a sudden we hear the sound. And we just all look at each other to make sure nobody's doing it or have a tape recorder or anything, and you hear it. I was like, I see people go white as a sheet. So nobody thinks any more about it. We get back in the van and leave. Well, years later, my son and I riding through, just took a day trip, went up there, come through, we stopped. And I was like, I think this is the place where I stopped when I was 18. So we got out and we just looked and everything. And next thing we go, it goes that sound again. He looks at me and I look at him. He goes, is that what you heard? I was like, that's exactly what I heard. He goes, I think it's time to leave. So, is there such thing as Bigfoot? I don't know. Is the sound real? I've heard it. So, then years later, let's see here. So this was in 2008. 2008. Doing investigations and everything, and I had a couple guys that worked for me, and they lived in an apartment complex that had a lot of Hispanic people. So one day we're out there, and it's almost dark. It is almost dark, and we see this thing run. And I'm telling you, it was not a dog, it was not a cat, it was not a fox. And all he yelled was El Cubo Chabla. And boy, you talk about people running. You saw people running, lock their doors, the lights go off, everything went dark. And he was like, I was shaking, but what in the world was that thing? I was like, I don't know. But yeah, people are scared of that sucker. So I was like, did I ever see one up close? No. Did I see one that looked like one? Maybe. So yeah, I'm getting to some good stuff. So this video might be a little bit long. So, in 2009, see, I remember because, I did so many things at different times. 2009, we went to Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond, Virginia. And this is the reason why I'm outside doing this video. Because of this thing right here. And my mom did her ancestry, and there was, cousins and uncles that fought in the Civil War. So we were looking for their grave, their tombstone and everything. But there's a pyramid built there for soldiers who were unknown, and they don't know their names. And I was told there's like 90 soldiers buried underneath there. So we're taking pictures and everything. And so I had a digital camera, and I went back looking at it while we were sitting there and didn't, see anything or nothing. In one picture, I took of my son walking, and then I heard a noise. There was them doing some construction work or whatever. So I turned around, took a picture of a monument type thing, and then turned back around and took some more pictures. And I get home, and oh my goodness, at this one tombstone, there is a soldier, a Civil War soldier, kneeling down with his hand on the tombstone, looking over it. I was like, I gotta see what stone that is. And so it was a week before we could get back there. And my son kept going, Mom, something followed me home. I go, what's the matter? He goes, it's not leaving me alone. It won't let me sleep. And my son can see things. He sees things, he hears things. I'm like, okay, let's go back. So, whatever you are, when we go back, we'll take you back. You got to stay in that cemetery. So, I pulled it up. Here's the funny thing. It was two tombstones. One was right here, one was right here. And in between, you could see the trees and half a tree. But it wasn't the tree. You could clearly see it. I wish I still had the picture so I could show y'all. But between moving and other things that happened, I've lost that picture. I think. I might still have it. I don't really know. I think I lost the picture. Anyway, I lost the computer that it was on. That's for sure. Because the computer was old. So we went back to Hollywood Cemetery. And I told it, whatever it is, you've got to stay here. You can't leave with us. So, and the tombstone that the soldier was kneeling at the last name was Young, Y-O-N-G. I was like, wow, that's just, could have been family, it could have been, anything. Well, another picture I took was where one of the generals was buried. And I saw this thing, and I thought it was there an animal there or something other? I don't know, it was this big. And it looked like a little tiki thing, and it was black. It was all throughout the picture. There was nothing wrong with the camera. There was nothing there, because when we went back the second time, I looked to see. And I was like, what the world did I catch on film? I was like, okay, we're getting out of here, because I ain't coming back. I cannot come back. So, in 2009, we moved from Virginia to Missouri. And it was the first trip or the second. I think it was the first trip. The first trip. No, it was like the last trip, because the first trip I went in a van. Oh, I planned it all wrong. But anyway, the last trip we were in the car, and I do have an older son that cannot talk about. I'll just leave it at that. He mapped us out. So we ended up in the mountains. And we're at the line where Tennessee and Virginia and Kentucky kind of meet. And this is like 12 midnight, around midnight or so. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's dark. I don't want to be up in this mountains in the dark. I just want to get through here and get out. And I kept saying, where in the world are you taking us? Because I'm just following the map. I was like, no, you're not. So we go there, and everything is fine. And also we come around this curve, and I just look, it catches my eye. my left eye. There's something standing there. It's all in black, and all I see is red eyes. I mean, the reddest eyes you can ever imagine. I'm like, please don't jump out. Please don't jump out. Please don't jump out. I'm like, I've had a deer. I've seen deer before. I've hit a deer before. This was not a deer. Sure enough, that thing jumps at my car. It hits right at the front tire, not from the front of the car to the front tire, but from the front tire to the driver's side door. That's where it jumps at. And I ran over it. I ran over it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what in the world did I hit? And I'm like, they look at me and I look at them. I say, hand me my gun. Because, yes, at that time I had a Barca 380. And I was like, hand me my gun. And I was like, don't get out of the car, Mom. I said, I've got to see what I hit. Because if it's a person, we've got to call 911. Or an animal. And either way, I've got to call 911. Couldn't find it. It was not on the road. Nothing. So, got back in the car. And then we weren't even half a mile. We got to the end. And there was a gas station. Had a street light. We got out with the flashlight. We looked underneath. We looked around. There was no dents. There was no blood. There was no hair. Nothing. I'm like, I will never come through this mountain this way ever again. I don't know what it was. All I know is it looked like a person with a black cloak on with red eyes. Whatever it was, it jumped at me. I'm like, I ran over it, and then it was gone. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. So, a few months later, we went back to Virginia because I had stuff in storage. So we went back and we got it. And on the way back, we stopped in West Virginia. Yeah. I don't know about that state. We stayed at, I think it was Motel 8. Or something like, Motel 8, one of the ones. Anyway, we had just finished watching the Scary Movie Room. What was that one? Shoot. Hold on, I'll think about it in just a minute. The title of it has room such and such number. And the guy's in there and he goes and he's investigating the room because they told him it was scary and has all these things happen to him. And the radio comes on it, randomly and plays one of the Karen Carpenter songs. Well, we're in the room. We get the hotel room. We go in there. Everything is fine. Nothing's going on. We go to bed. I'm telling you, at midnight, the radio came on by itself and it started playing that same song that was in that movie. And I'm like, whatever you are, you've got to go. Now. Radio went off just like that. We got the next morning and my son that I live with, his cell phone, and we had put the cell phone on that table. It was fine. We got up, it had a scratch right through the middle of it. I was like, yep, I ain't coming through this state again either. I'll go around it. I get that. Room 1709, I think is what the movie's called. And I was like, yeah, yeah. Y'all can have West Virginia. That's fine with me. I don't need that state. So I hope y'all enjoyed my scary stories. It was a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. But, weird things happen. all the time, unexplainable. I don't know. I do know what the Bible says. That we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers of the air. That I do know, and that I've seen. But I do know one thing. There are more angels with me than there are against me. So, with that, if y'all haven't, like, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, and we'll see you next time on Our Treasure Home.